Okay, so you guys send in a ton of great questions about bodybuilding and weightlifting.
Yeah,
And we are going to tackle as many of them as we can today,
absolutely. We're diving deep.
using this addendum to a Bodybuilding Made Simple compendium that we have as our source material.
Perfect source for this, yeah.
Yeah, and we really want to make sure that this information is clear and usable.
Yeah, and really helps people on their fitness journey, no matter where they are.
Absolutely.
Beginner, intermediate, whatever, we've got you covered.
Yeah, there are some really interesting topics in this material.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, we're talking about stuff like,
Yeah.
whether lifting weights too early can affect your height,
Right.
the right way to choose exercises, getting your form absolutely perfect.
Technique is everything.
Yeah, I mean, there are some really surprising insights here.
Absolutely. Myth busting and aha moments galore.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Me too.
Let's start with a question that I think a lot of people have, especially when they're younger,
Sure.
or if they're thinking about, younger people starting to lift weights.
Yeah.
Does weightlifting stunt your growth?
Right. That's the big one, isn't it?
It's a classic.
Yeah.
So what does this material have to say about that?
Well, it's pretty clear on this.
Okay.
Weightlifting is safe for people of all ages,
Okay.
and it does not stunt your growth.
Okay, so that's reassuring.
Yeah. The author actually mentions starting weightlifting around 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, if you're worried about that, this text says don't be.
That's good to know.
Yeah. And, weight training can actually be good for bone density, no matter how old you are.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But there's a big but here, right?
There is. Yeah.
The source puts a huge emphasis on having perfect form.
Oh, absolutely.
Why is that so important, especially for, younger people who are still growing?
Yeah. The addendum really warns about the dangers of bad form.
Okay.
It talks about how, if you're squatting and you're like really bent over, leaning forward,
Right.
that can be really bad for your growth plates. Those are the areas of cartilage near the ends of your bones that help you grow when you're young.
Right.
So putting too much pressure on them in the wrong way, not good.
Not good at all.
Not good.
So basically, if you're not sure about your form,
Yes.
especially with those big exercises like squats,
Oh, yeah, the compound movements.
get some help, talk to a trainer.
Absolutely. Get a professional to check your form.
Yeah, it's worth it.
It really is.
All right, let's switch gears a bit and talk about how exercise affects our hormones.
Okay, hormones. Always an interesting topic.
Yeah, you always hear about those big compound lifts and Olympic movements
Yeah.
causing a big spike in testosterone and growth hormone.
Right, the hormonal response to lifting.
So what does our source say about that?
It actually confirms that, heavy movements, squats, deadlifts, the Olympic lifts,
Right.
they do increase testosterone and growth hormone production.
Mhm.
But what's interesting is how much and for how long.
Okay, yeah, what's the real story there?
Well, according to the addendum, the increase is pretty small.
Okay.
And it only lasts for a short time. We're talking like a minute or so.
A minute.
Yeah, not the massive surge for hours that some people imagine.
Right. It's not like your testosterone levels are just
Yeah.
through the roof for the rest of the day.
No, not quite.
So the source actually debunks that idea
Directly addresses it, yeah.
of like an 8 to 10-fold increase for hours.
Yep, that's a myth.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
So why even mention this then?
Well, the author says it's because even a small increase, even for a minute,
Yeah.
can be beneficial.
Okay, so squeezing out every last bit of
Exactly. Every little edge counts.
testosterone.
That's the idea.
Okay, so if you're really focused on getting that big hormone release, what does the addendum recommend?
The advice is pretty simple, actually.
Okay.
For testosterone, get enough sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah, that's when your body produces the most testosterone.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's why your levels are usually highest in the morning.
Right.
And for growth hormone, the recommendation is endurance training.
Oh, interesting.
So different types of exercise for different hormonal effects.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
So lifting heavy weights, it's great.
Yeah.
But when it comes to those two hormones, sleep and endurance training are key.
That's what the source says.
All right, let's move on to another big debate in the fitness world.
Okay, hit me.
Machines versus free weights.
Ah, the classic showdown.
Yeah, when you walk into the gym,
Yeah.
what should you be focusing on?
Right. Good question.
So the source actually takes a pretty balanced approach here.
Okay.
It says that when it comes to preventing injuries and building muscle,
Yeah.
machines and free weights are pretty similar.
All right. So you're not missing out if you prefer one over the other.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like one is inherently better.
Got it.
But the addendum does point out a key difference.
Okay, what's that?
Something about free weights teaching your body to handle heavy loads.
Right.
And something about the central nervous system.
Yes, exactly, the CNS.
Yeah. Can you explain that a bit more?
Sure. So basically, free weights force your body to learn how to stabilize and control the weight.
Okay.
In all three dimensions, not just up and down.
Right. It's not fixed like a machine.
Exactly.
And this builds what are called CNS force proprioceptions.
Yep. It's like learning to ride a bike.
Okay.
Once your nervous system figures out the balance and coordination, you never really forget it.
Okay.
That's what happens with free weights.
So your body's learning to, recruit the right muscles.
Yeah.
More efficiently.
Exactly. It's more integrated than just pushing or pulling a weight along a fixed path.
Right. Because you're having to control it.
Yeah, your body is working harder to keep everything stable.
So does this CNS adaptation also happen with machines?
To some extent, yes.
Sure.
If it didn't, you wouldn't be able to increase the weight on, cable rows.
Right.
Or lat pull-downs.
Makes sense.
Your body still adapts.
Yeah.
But the source says that it's much more strongly enforced with free weights.
Okay, so there's a bigger neurological benefit with free weights.
Exactly. Your body knows the difference between a free weight,
Yeah.
a Smith machine, and a cable machine.
Right.
And it adapts accordingly.
Okay, that's really interesting.
It is.
The source also mentions something called neurophysiological differences between exercises.
Right. This is about how even if two movements look similar, they might not be working your muscles in exactly the same way.
Okay, that's a bit counterintuitive.
It can be.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. The source uses the lat pull down and the pull up.
Okay, classic back exercises.
Right. So in a lat pull down, you're bringing the weight down to you.
Yeah.
It's a close chained movement, meaning your hands are fixed.
Okay.
But in a pull up, you're pulling your body up to the bar.
Right.
That's open chain. Your body is moving, not the weight.
Interesting.
And these subtle differences can lead to different patterns of muscle activation.
So even though they both work your lats,
Yes.
they work them slightly differently.
Precisely.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's all about the nuances.
So what's the practical takeaway here?
Well, the addendum suggests that when you have a choice between a free weight exercise and a cable or Smith machine version, like, say, a barbell row versus a cable row.
Right.
Or a free weight squat versus a Smith machine squat.
Yeah.
Generally go for the free weight option.
Okay, so prioritize free weights.
For the most part, yeah.
But machines still have their place.
Oh, absolutely. Especially for isolation exercises or when you're learning a new movement.
Okay, that makes sense.
But for overall strength and, integrated fitness, free weights are usually better.
All right, speaking of exercises that don't require machines, let's talk about push-ups.
Push-ups, the OG body weight exercise?
Yeah, are they useless?
That's a question we get a lot.
I mean, they're so basic.
They are.
But do they actually build muscle?
Well, the source actually says that the body often responds really well to body weight exercises.
Okay.
Like push-ups.
Okay.
Sometimes even better than to free weights.
Really?
Yeah, it gives the example of parallel bar dips.
Right.
Saying that they can actually be better than bench pressing for overall muscle activation.
Wow, that's a bold statement.
It is, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Okay, how so?
Well, with dips, you're using more muscles, not just your chest and triceps.
Yeah.
But also your shoulders and even your lats.
Right, it's more of a compound movement.
Exactly. More bang for your buck.
So why do people bench press so much more weight than they can ever push up?
That's a good question. Yeah. It comes down to progressive resistance.
Okay.
With dips, you can easily add weight as you get stronger.
Right, just slap on a dip belt.
Exactly.
But with push-ups, it's harder to add weight safely.
Yeah, you can put a plate on your back, but that gets awkward fast.
Right, and potentially dangerous.
Exactly.
So you're limited in how much you can progress.
That's the main reason why push-ups often fall behind bench pressing in the long run.
Okay, so it's not that push-ups are bad.
No.
It's just that they're hard to scale.
Precisely.
So if you could somehow keep adding weight to push-ups, the source is saying they might actually be better than bench pressing.
That's the implication, yeah.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
It is. It shows you that the body really likes those closed-chain body weight movements.
Right, like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
So maybe someday someone will invent like a super safe weighted push-up machine.
Maybe. Who knows?
And then we'll finally know for sure.
The ultimate test.
All right, let's move on to another question.
Okay, fire away.
Is it true that if you make an exercise harder,
you'll
automatically get better gains from it?
The more pain, more gain myth.
Yeah, exactly. Does that actually hold up?
The source says no.
Okay, good.
It uses the example of people doing bench press with their feet up on the bench.
Right, or wiggling their legs in the air.
Yeah, thinking they're making it harder, so it must be better.
Right, but they're just making themselves unstable.
Exactly. They're losing their base of power.
So it's not actually targeting the muscles more effectively?
Not really.
It's just making the movement harder to control.
Yeah, and potentially more dangerous.
Right.
The source actually is a pretty funny analogy for this.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It talks about doing barbell curls with an added unpleasant consequence.
Okay, I'm not sure I want to know.
Yeah, it's a bit out there.
But the point is clear.
Yeah, just making an exercise harder doesn't automatically make it better.
Right, it has to be the right kind of hard.
Yeah. Exactly. You need to challenge the target muscles in a way that promotes adaptation.
Right, that progressive overload we talked about.
Yep, not just random difficulty.
Okay, that makes sense.
Good.
Let's shift our focus now to time under tension.
TUT, the tempo of your reps.
Yeah, exactly. How fast or slow you lift and lower the weight.
Important stuff.
So what does the source say about the ideal TUT for,
Yeah.
maximizing results?
Okay, so for both bodybuilding and strength training,
Okay.
there's no benefit to a slow positive. That's the lifting part of the rep.
Okay, so like on a bench press,
Yeah.
you should be exploding the bar up.
Exactly. Drive it forcefully.
Okay, what about the lowering part, the negative?
So for beginners,
Yeah.
a normal, natural speed is fine.
Uh-huh.
Focus on form first.
Right, that makes sense.
But once you're more experienced,
Yeah.
you can experiment with slowing down the negative.
Okay, so like a count of 4 to 6 seconds.
Something like that, yeah.
But the source cautions against going too slow.
Yeah, beyond 6 seconds, it's just pointless difficulty.
Okay, no need to make it harder than it needs to be.
Exactly.
So is there a difference in TUT for strength training versus bodybuilding?
There is, yeah.
Okay, what's the difference?
For strength training, slowing down the negative doesn't really matter.
Okay.
But for bodybuilding,
Yeah.
it can be beneficial.
Why is that?
Because a lot of muscle damage, which leads to growth,
Right.
actually happens during the lengthening phase.
Okay, so that slow, controlled descent
Yeah,
creates more of those microscopic tears in the muscle fibers.
exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's all about the microtrauma.
So if someone is new to paying attention to their TUT
Yeah,
and they start slowing down the negative,
right.
what should they expect to happen?
You'll probably have to use less weight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the author says they personally used around 60% of their 1 rep max when they started focusing on a slower negative.
Wow, so a significant drop in weight.
Yeah, but it's not a bad thing.
Right, it's just a different kind of intensity.
Precisely, you're increasing the time under tension.
Instead of just the weight.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right balance.
All right, let's talk about structuring workouts now.
Training frequency, splits, all that jazz.
Yeah, so the author has experimented with a lot of different training styles over the years.
A decade of lifting, lots of trial and error.
Yeah, so what did they find worked best for them?
They found that training around 3 times a week was optimal.
3 times a week.
Yeah, it allowed for enough recovery
Okay.
while still providing enough stimulus for progress.
So not too much, not too little.
Sweet spot.
But they do say that training more often isn't wrong.
No, if your body can handle it.
Right, and if you're recovering properly.
Exactly. It's individual.
But they do emphasize that rest and recovery become more important as you get older.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Your body needs more time to repair as you age.
So even if you feel like you could train more, your body might not agree.
Listen to your body. It knows best.
It's a good reminder that rest is just as important as lifting.
Absolutely. Sometimes even more important.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that.
It is.
All right, let's talk about a specific exercise that a lot of people struggle with.
Okay, which one?
The barbell back squat.
The king of exercises.
Yeah, it's a great exercise.
It is.
But a lot of people have trouble with the form.
Yeah, it's tricky.
So what kind of advice does the source offer for getting the squat form right?
Well, it starts with a pretty funny analogy.
Okay, I love analogies.
It says that if you can sit down on a toilet,
Okay.
you already know how to squat.
I mean, I guess so.
The basic movement pattern is the same.
Right.
But the problem is when you add weight to the equation.
Yeah, that's when things get messy.
Exactly. The heavy barbell can throw off your natural movement pattern.
And that's what leads to bad form.
Yeah, you start compensating and things go wrong.
So what's the solution?
The source recommends box squatting as a learning tool.
Box squatting. Okay, can you explain that a bit?
Sure. Basically, you set up a box that's a little lower than your parallel squat depth.
Okay.
And you squat down and tap your butt on the box before standing back up.
Okay, so the box is like a target.
Exactly. It helps you learn to sit back into the squat instead of just dropping straight down.
Right, so it's emphasizing that hip hinge
Precise.
is box squatting safe.
It is, if you do it right.
Okay.
Most injuries happen when people crash down onto the box.
Right, with too much weight or just being careless.
Exactly. You have to maintain control throughout the movement.
Okay, so start light and focus on the form.
Absolutely.
And how much weight should someone use for box squats?
The advice is to start pretty light.
Okay.
Maybe even sub 100 pounds for some people.
Wow, that's lighter than I would have thought.
Yeah, but it's because box squatting really works your posterior chain.
Your glutes and hamstrings.
Exactly.
And those muscles might be undertrained.
Often are, yeah.
So you need to give them a chance to catch up.
Precisely. Build that foundation.
Okay, good advice.
Yeah, it's all about quality over quantity.
All right, let's move on to a more unusual exercise.
Okay, what do we have?
The pullover.
Pullovers, yeah, they can be confusing.
Hey, that's what the source says. Why is that?
Because they seem to work so many different muscles. Your serratus, your pecs, your triceps, your lats.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mystery.
So what's the verdict? What are pullovers best for?
The author thinks they're best for lats.
Okay.
But not essential for a good back.
So you could skip them and still have a great back workout?
Pretty much, yeah.
But they can be good for adding variety.
Yeah, if you're getting bored.
Or hitting a plateau.
Exactly, switch things up.
Are there any safety concerns with pullovers?
Yeah, the source says barbell pullovers are generally safe.
Okay.
But avoid dumbbell pullovers.
Why is that?
They can cause shoulder impingement.
Right, that's bad news.
Yeah, not good for the shoulders.
So stick to the barbell version.
And do them correctly.
Yeah. Of course, always good form.
Absolutely.
All right, let's compare two variations of another exercise.
Okay, shoot.
Parallel bar dips versus bench dips.
Ah, the dip debate.
Which one is better?
The source is pretty clear on this.
Okay.
Parallel bar dips are superior in every way.
Wow, that's a strong endorsement.
Yeah, for a good reason.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, first of all, it's much easier to add weight to parallel bar dips.
Right, you can use a dip belt.
Exactly.
With bench dips, you're stuck balancing plates on your lap.
Yeah, not ideal and potentially dangerous.
Right. I've seen people do that, and it always makes me nervous.
Yeah, not a good look.
But there's a bigger reason to avoid bench dips.
There is, yeah.
And it's a pretty serious one.
It is.
Shoulder impingement.
Yep, that's the big one.
Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. So shoulder impingement is when the tendons in your shoulder get pinched.
Okay.
And bench dips can really aggravate that.
And it can be chronic, right?
Yeah, the damage can build up over time.
So you might not even notice it at first.
Exactly, until it's too late.
That's scary.
Yeah. So the takeaway is stick to parallel bar dips.
If you want healthy shoulders.
Precisely.
Speaking of shoulder impingement, what other exercises should people be careful with?
Okay, so the source provides a whole list.
All right, let's hear it.
First up, bench press with a super wide grip.
Okay, wider than shoulder width.
Yeah, that can put a lot of stress on your shoulders.
So go a bit narrower.
A little wider than shoulder width is fine.
Okay.
But don't go crazy.
Good advice.
Also, watch your elbow position during the bench press.
Okay.
Tuck them in, don't flare them out.
So elbows closer to your body.
Yeah, it's better for your shoulders.
Okay, what else?
The Arnold press is a no-go.
The Arnold press.
Yeah, the dumbbell shoulder press where you rotate your wrist.
Oh, right.
It's too much stress on the shoulder joint with all that rotation.
Okay, good to know.
Upright rows can also be problematic.
Upright rows, okay.
Yeah, they can cause impingement if you go too high.
So how high is too high?
Stop at or below nipple level.
Okay, so a modified upright row might be okay?
Maybe, for some people.
But definitely something to be careful with.
Absolutely.
What about lateral raises?
Avoid doing them with a pouring water motion.
Pouring water.
Yeah, where your pinky is higher than your thumb at the top.
Oh, right.
That internal rotation can cause impingement.
Okay, so keep the pinky lower than the thumb.
Exactly. Good form is key.
And we already talked about bench dips and dumbbell pullovers?
Yeah, those are on the no-no list.
Right, for shoulder health.
Exactly.
But barbell pullovers are okay.
Yeah, and machine pullovers too.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, it's all about the specifics.
All right, let's talk about a more advanced exercise.
Okay, bring it on.
Reverse grip pressing.
Ah, the underhand grip.
Yeah, like a reverse grip bench press.
Not for the faint of heart.
So the source says this is for advanced lifters only.
Yeah, because it requires a lot of control.
And they really stress the importance of using a power rack.
Oh, yeah, safety first.
Because the bar is more likely to slip with a reverse grip.
Exactly. You need those safety pins in case things go wrong.
And don't let your wrists bend backward.
Yeah, that's a recipe for a wrist injury.
So why even bother with a reverse grip?
It emphasizes the triceps and shoulders more.
Okay.
And puts less stress on the pecs.
Interesting. So it's a way to target those muscles specifically.
Precisely.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's all about knowing your goals.
All right. Last but not least,
Hit me.
the source mentions some unusual exercises.
Oh yeah, the hidden gems.
That might be worth exploring.
For those who want to try something different.
Exactly. So what are some of these exercises?
Okay, we've got Zercher squats.
Zercher squats.
Yeah, you hold the barbell in the click of your elbows.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It is great for quads and core.
Okay, what else?
Lat shrugs.
That shrugs, huh?
Yeah, a unique way to isolate the lats.
Interesting.
Bent over barbell rows in a power rack.
Okay.
With the bar resting on the pins between reps.
So no cheating with leg drive.
Exactly, pure back strength.
Okay, what else?
Rack pulls.
Rack pulls. Those are...
Partial deadlifts from knee level.
Right, great for the upper back.
Yep, and lockout strength.
Okay, any more?
Scott pressing.
Scott pressing. That's a dumbbell shoulder press, right?
Yeah, but you hold the dumbbells by the inner plate.
Okay, so a different angle.
Exactly, targets the delts differently.
Okay, any more?
Rack lockouts.
Rack lockouts. What are those?
Just the top 4 to 5 inches of the bench press.
Oh, okay.
Great for triceps and lockout strength.
Okay, that makes sense.
Floor pressing.
Floor pressing. So bench press on the floor.
Exactly. Limited range of motion.
Okay.
Emphasizes the triceps.
And last but not least,
Seated half pressing.
seated half pressing.
Yeah, a partial military press.
Okay.
Targets the lateral triceps.
Wow, that's quite a list.
It is. Lots of options to explore.
So there's always something new to try.
Absolutely. Never stop learning.
All right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into your bodybuilding and weightlifting questions.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did. We talked about growth, hormones, machines versus free weights.
Shoulder health, exercise selection.
Yeah, a lot of important stuff.
Hopefully you all have a better understanding now.
Yeah, and some practical takeaways.
Absolutely. Put that knowledge to good use.
Remember, proper form is everything.
Always, no exceptions.
Be mindful of the nuances of different exercises.
Yeah, they're not all created equal.
And listen to your body.
Your body will tell you what it needs.
So final thought for you all.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think about all the exercises we discussed today.
Yeah.
The common ones and the unusual ones.
Right.
Which ones are you going to try in your next workout?
Good question. Something to think about.
Yeah. Keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep pushing yourself.
That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening.